we're going to call this regular board meeting together. First, I'd like to have Kevin McKelvey come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Roll call vote, please. Roll call vote. Roll call. No voting. You did a great job.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. What am I saying?
Yes. Here.
Here. Here. I was just following
Here.
that.
Just following
Yeah. All right, I need a motion to adopt the agenda for the regular meeting of July 2nd.
So moved. Second.
And seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Introduction of new employee. Matt, I'm hoping it's Weiss, it could be Weiss. Weiss, sorry about that. 50-50 chance. Plant operator 2.
Yes, okay. And Matt Weiss is actually rejoining the district. He joined us again on the 25th, last Wednesday. He's filling a vacancy left over from a recent resignation. He worked here for 2 years and then left us for Irvine Ranch Water District, where we have since stolen him back, so that's excellent. Matt's married to Laura. They have 2 sons, William and Michael. In his spare time, he enjoys camping, hunting, and coaching his son's soccer teams. And that's Matt.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Appreciate it. Any questions? I have one quick one. How was it like, obviously you left Irvine to come back home, you're the prodigal son, everyone was happy to hear you come back. What was it like, what did you do for them?
I was an operator too as well. They were going through a big expansion, and I wanted to be a part of that, and learned a lot. But this is where my home is, so I came back.
Good for you.
Do you live here in town?
Yes. Yeah,
Great.
in Escondido. Right down the road.
That's close.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much, thanks.
Welcome back,
Welcome
Matt.
back. Ready to go.
Kevin, if you'd like to come up. We've got another retiree today. Kevin McKelvey. Kevin's the purchasing agent for the district, in charge of the warehouse and all the functions. He's been with us for 18 and a half years, give or take.
Time goes by.
Time goes by quickly. Before that, he was actually with Martin Susco, so he was very familiar with the industry that we worked in, and that's what prompted us to hire Kevin, was he brought with him just a wealth of knowledge. And kind of put it in perspective what Kevin does. He's the field bean counter of Tom. And I say that lovingly. Because what Kevin does is he's the purchasing policy that the board adopts every year. Kevin's the primary person that makes sure everything that takes place or bought at the district complies with that policy. So anything that's purchased, anything from pencils to pens or any other contracts, all go through Kevin. So he's got a great wealth of knowledge. And that has been his primary role, is to make sure we get the best bang for the buck. So that's his primary thing. He's also been very instrumental. We have the Maximo program, which is a maintenance management system that he's strongly involved with that. So he's been a great leader to help get that going. And when he gets done here, he's moving to Colorado.
All right. Nice.
They got water. So Kevin will be greatly missed.
Still my second one given out. So congratulations to the department that gets it. So that's all yours, and thank you very much for your 18 years of service. And you return towards Tori with a picture. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
So it kind of keeps a balance, one new employee, one retired employee.
Well, you can see we don't have
See you
that many
later, Kevin.
retirees. I mean, they're long-term. I think the average term here is probably 18 to 20 plus years for the employees here.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
pretty long.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Okay, under oral communication, we do have one gentleman, Whitney Stala, I think. Stala's up? Scala, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Reading's fundamental, I missed some days in school.
Excuse me for reading off my phone a little bit here today.
That's a week.
Well, my name's Whitney Scala. My address is 864 Torrento Drive, San Diego, California, 92106. I'm fortunate enough today to represent Weir Asphalt Construction, George Weir, president. And I'm here to reiterate on his behalf a concern that he raised just within the last week. Last week, his company participated in a VWD bid process for a small steel and stripe job. After the bid was awarded to another contractor, Mr. Weir raised a concern that he felt that in the industry level, the street level, he felt that perhaps the water district had become known for a lax attitude toward contractor compliance with the prevailing wage standards. To your senior staff's credit, they immediately met with us this past week within only days of our expressing our concerns, so we're extremely grateful for the time they gave us, and we'd like to thank Mr. Lamb, Mr. Gertis, and Mr. Scott for that opportunity. That was a very productive meeting, and we're all in full agreement that the payment of prevailing wages on public works jobs is both a legal requirement and a fundamental standard of a responsible public agency. Mr. Weir feels this with particular passion because on prevailing wage jobs, the beneficiaries of those wages aren't at all him. They're passed on 100% to the workers, and that's a critical benefit for the middle class and lower middle class workers who enjoy those wages. Where we maybe diverge a little bit with staff is on the subject of the next step. We know that if we're passionately concerned that something is amiss, we know we could go to the labor board or to the BIA compliance offices, and nobody on our side's interested in that step, particularly after such a good meeting with staff. But we do feel the better remedy is for the water district to recognize its unique position in this process by bolstering its best practices and its industry image. 3 suggestions immediately come to mind. We'd ask that you thoroughly review whether the water district's official commitment to prevailing wage is somehow being diluted as it plays its way through the bidding process. We'd ask that you consider conducting random inspections of certified payroll reports. Those aren't always insisted upon, and maybe that's being taken advantage of. And we'd ask that you pay closer attention when bid requirements invite potential abuse, such as on weekend jobs, where payment of prevailing wage would require double and triple time, and maybe there's something going on sometimes in bids to get around that. We voiced these same suggestions to staff, and staff committed to some of the suggestions and took the rest under consideration. We'd hope that the board and the staff would go further by committing to proactively guide the district toward leadership in achieving a 100% contractor compliance rate on prevailing wage. So thank you.
Thank you.
Question for staff?
For staff? Okay, no questions for,
No, I think I got the point.
I'll be here.
thank you. Right ahead, Mr. Hernandez, you have the floor.
It's interesting, I'm involved in a prevailing wage job as a general contractor out in the lovely city of Blythe. And the certified payroll requirement is absolutely formal in Blythe. I think today is 1962 by all recognition. And I can't get a check without that. And is that a requirement of our contracts, that certification of the certified payroll prior to payment is
No.
accompanied?
No, depending on the jurisdiction you actually are working for, school district would be different than a city, which would be different than a cemetery district, which would be different than Billy Joe Bob's organization.
Yeah.
We do not have that requirement as a water district to require certified payrolls. We are not the enforcement agency of certified payroll. If there is a consideration or a complaint that maybe as was brought up, what would happen is the enforcement goes to the labor board, a statement is made to them, they request certified payrolls from us, we give that to them. They actually investigate and determine whether or not pay was made based upon what certified payroll is. We don't have that charge.
Well, I think we should, I would like to see that put on a future agenda to just discuss that policy completely. Because in all fairness, who would know if in fact the certified payroll was being put together properly unless an outside individual made a claim of maybe it's not being done correctly to the labor board.
That is correct.
Yeah, and outside sources have more fish to fry than.
Yeah, I would just defer that to bring it to council, and we'll bring
Yeah.
back a report on what we're obligated to do by law and what we do.
Very good, thank you.
Well, and that was gonna be my question for Jeff, actually. 20 years ago, I was with another group that explained to me very biblically that with shekels come shackles. And if you took money from the feds or the state, you had to pay prevailing wage. If you didn't, you didn't have to.
That's correct.
And it was a government agency. And I understand the need to try to get everybody up to a living wage, so I understand that side. But explain to me, the district is not taking money that I understand from the state nor the feds. Has that law changed in the last 20 years? I assume it has.
Well, you gotta kind of go back to the Great Depression.
Oh,
And
geez.
I'm sorry,
And the
indulge me
dinosaurs?
here,
You want to talk
but
about dinosaurs?
this is, what happened is that the California Labor Code was actually amended during the Great Depression to require all public agencies, cities, counties, and special districts, that on public works jobs, they had to pay prevailing wage. And it was really a response to the Depression, in the sense that they were trying to, there was a couple of public policies. One was, if you had better workers or higher paid workers on public works jobs, the thought was that you would get a better product, that the jobs would be better, and the wage, similar to the minimum wage argument to some extent, that the wage earner is going to be benefited also by this. So fast forward now 70 years, and in California, about a quarter of the cities are what are called chartered cities in California. And they have more autonomy when it comes to public financing and matters like prevailing wage. And so actually, charter cities have, in the last few decades, been able to argue successfully in front of the courts that they're exempt from paying prevailing wage. Charter cities would argue, some charter cities would argue, that it's more efficient and cost-effective, and they can save money on projects if they're able not to have this requirement to pay prevailing wage. So you've got these two public policies, basically coming together. Last year, the legislature coincidentally passed SB 7, which was a bill because of this, I think really in large part because of the strength of the unions in California. This bill was passed that basically said to cities, if you want federal money or state money or any kind of financial support for your projects, and I mean it's any projects, then either in your charter or or by ordinance, you have to pass an ordinance, if you will, that says that you'll comply with the prevailing wage requirements. So the policy, at least the pendulum in this state, is moving very strongly in favor of payment of prevailing wage. I have a copy of just a very short summary for the board, one page of this SB 7 that sort of explains that statute. And that's now been codified to Labor Code Section 1782 and is the requirement. We have always had a policy in this district,
Well, we've had to.
that we pay prevailing wage,
we've had
and
to.
we'll continue to do that.
By example, that Director Martin, I just received a letter yesterday from the union in a state organization asking for all of our documents and records on the tunnel project
Yeah.
that we just completed. So it's not unusual for us to get requests from union and other shops and, okay, please verify your contract, your insurance, your requirement for prevailing wage, and other stuff. But what they did not ask for was the actual certified payrolls. They just wanted the acknowledgement that a contract said they had to. So it's not unusual for us to get requests like that.
All right.
And one last thing is, and maybe Mr. Hernandez has 100% right, we should have a separate workshop to discuss this.
Well, I'll put it on as an item.
Okay.
You know, and happy to address that, because there's some
The question
interesting
I'm gonna-
arguments that
The
are.
question I'm gonna be asking is, in order for us to do this verification, it's gonna cost us time and money.
Right.
So that has to be a cost of service.
Well, it could also be an issue whether or not we have the right to actually get access to those people's confidential information on what they're paid, their information, and everything else.
Okay.
We may
Okay.
not have that authority. to do
But
that.
if we do, we have to spend time doing it, so someone has to pay for it.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay, we'll bring it back.
we can ferret that out.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what they were saying, as part of this workshop or however more information is gonna be provided to us, if we could just look at some options too, is what options do we have as far as putting into our terms and conditions in our contract language that may give us a little bit more teeth to be able to perform at least random audits, if not auditing everybody.
We'll bring it back with whether or not we have that authority.
And then I had one question for the speaker. Was there, in this particular bid that you had mentioned, for lack of a better way to put it, was there a reasonable cause, or was there something was there a concern that you were made aware of that prompted you to bring this before us with one of the other bidders, or was it just in case?
There was there's a general sense on the part of my client, again, that the attitude on the ground had become lax, at least that was the industry perception.
Okay.
Combined, in this particular instance, it was a seal and stripe job. My client is one of the few asphalt contractors, in fact, one of only two in the county, that actually makes the sealant. So he bid that at cost. He put his prevailing wage labor in, and he waited for what was gonna happen.
Okay.
He had kind of reached a breaking point.
Okay, so we'll put it on a future agenda.
Sure.
Yeah,
Bring it back.
understandable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
you want to make sure that you're apples to apples on the bids, right?
Right.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have gone back and looked at the bids, and we find no irregularities.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, consent calendar 1.1.2, approval of minutes and the warrant list. I need a motion
Move to approve?
and a second.
I'll second, but I have a question as well.
Okay, motion and a second, and a question. Mr. Sinella.
Item, on page 2 of the warrants list, name of the company was Astari, Inc., new phone system project, blah, 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 and IT consulting. This is related to the phone system that we approved last meeting or the meeting before, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so was this amount, this 35,000, included in the total amount of $80,000 on the project? Or is this above and beyond that for kind of getting it set up?
It was within the budget amount that we had.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I remember, well, okay, sorry, I misspoke. Not the budget, but if I remember correctly, we approved a system that was roughly $80,000, $85,000 was the system price that we had approved, I think, at the last meeting or the meeting before that. Was this 35 part of that 85 or above and beyond that?
I think this is the
This-
first payment.
this is the first
to them,
payment
so-
towards the-
Yeah,
So-
it would be within it.
The first, so I see on page 1 to a, where'd it go, sorry?
The page before this?
No, I found page 1 and now I'm looking for the item, sorry. I can't highlight in yellow my,
It's okay, are you on page 12?
We approved it with Windstream, $88,910.
Okay, so 88,000.
Oh, I see.
So on page 1 under Windstream, you have 25% prepay, new phone system, 22,000. And then on page 2, you have this Astari company for phone system related and IT related consulting for 35.
Yeah, this is probably within the budget, but it's a different vendor.
Okay, yeah, but what was it for?
Oh, I'm
This is
sorry.
with
The switch gear, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of different switches that the phone system uses, which is actually purchased separately from the contractor. So it was within the total amount, but it was a different contractor doing the work.
So,
These are relay switches, taking out the old panel, putting a new panel in.
so did Windstream sub to this company or?
I don't think so. It's just two companies working together, and we actually paid them directly, so we wouldn't be subbing to them.
So of the $88,000, we're.
We would have been
we're
50-something into it. Yeah.
Okay.
And they're actually turning it on next week.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
That's a voice over IP.
Yes. Yeah, they're actually, it's kind of an intimidating looking phone. I saw them today programming, and it looks like a Star Trek thing you flip open. It's got a big round screen on it that,
Because you can move the phone anywhere.
What's
The
that?
phone- The phone is self-contained, so if you move the phone to another office, it still has.
it just
all-
carries everything with it. Yeah, like I said, they were programming them today. They've already put all the switches in, and they've done all the programming. So we should actually go live next week.
Did our contract include like a 2-year support system for it for everybody?
There was support, I don't know if it was 1 year or 2 years that was included in it, but it's a minimum one, and we try to get 2.
By a year,
Yeah,
people should know.
you would think so by a year.
Any other questions on the warrants? No?
Need to verify.
Roll call vote, please.
We'll verify that, Mike, but I believe that's what it is.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
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 Yes. 2.1, review and adopt amended conflict of interest code.
On an annual basis, the district is obligated to adopt their, or biennial rather, conflict of interest code. There's only 2 changes that are noted in the memo. One is changing a title. It went from district engineer, director of engineering and operations to where those 2 titles were separated. And then the only other change was in section 8.1, which is the total value of gifts has been increased from $420 to $440. Those are the only 2 changes in the policy this year, and staff would recommend that you adopt the revised policy.
Any questions of staff? Motion?
I make a motion, we approve.
Second?
Motion and second, roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
To General Manager.
Only one item. You may recall we had some excitement a month or so ago with the fires, the Cocos fires. By the way, the staff was very happy with the lunch that the board provided. That went over really well. They really appreciated it.
Good luck, you did a good job.
You may recall the issue that was brought up by the press, and this lady continues to bring this up at the press level. She's contacted just about everybody. Because of all those contacts, it's become more of an issue than it really is. But what we've been doing is, and just to go back and give you a little history out there, because I've had to do that a lot over the last 2 weeks with everybody I've met with. The Coronado Hills area was built by an assessment district in late 1978-ish. Construction started around 1980 and was done 1980, 81, 82. That's when the construction was done. So you figure that was quite a few years ago when that was built. The way it was built was one tank at the top, and everything kind of spread out like fingers. You can imagine what the Coronado Hills area is like. It's not like downtown where we can loop pipes and do a grid that we normally would do. So you've got anywhere from 20 pounds right around the tank to 340 pounds at the lowest point, which happens to be where this fire hydrant is. Back in that era, there was no such animal as a 350-pound fire hydrant. They didn't exist physically. They do now make fire hydrants that can take 350 pounds of pressure. But a little bit of education I've gotten over the past couple of weeks from talking to the fire marshals is that even their suction hoses that go from the fire hydrant into the truck, they're only rated at 250 PSI max. So we've got kind of a conflict there. So I've been meeting with the Elfin Forest Fire Department. Plus, I didn't know it, but there's a San Diego County Fire Authority. And that's the sort of an overreaching group that takes care of all the county areas from a fire standpoint for all these small, they're community service districts, but they're fire areas. So I've been meeting with them over what we could do, basically not because anything was wrong, but what could we do to work together with the fire department to improve the safety to the firefighters, which has kind of been our goal, because y'all remember the toy that was called the water wiggle? Mike might not, he's too young. Where you turn it on and this thing flew around in the air. That's what you would have with the fireman if he was on the end of a hose, and it's just not safe. The regular firefighting hoses are only 150 PSI pressure. So we've got a real conflict. So what we started looking at about 2 weeks ago is what could we do together, ourselves, the fire department, and even the county, through the San Diego Fire Authority, which they get their funding. In our case, it would be Supervisor Horn's office. So I spoke to the chief of that department, and he reached out to Supervisor Horn, asked if they would be willing to provide some funding to match what we might be willing to put up to help replace those 5 fire hydrants that are down there. So the cost is gonna be between $25,000 and $30,000. Supervisor Horn committed $15,000 towards the cost. I met with the 3 fire marshals yesterday to see if everybody thought that was a good idea. They would appreciate it if we would move forward and do that, namely, because again, it's not that they don't work, it's just they're concerned about the safety of the firefighters, if they were to hook onto it and use it. The local people know how to do it, because they know what they are, but you know how the fires are. If they have people from Imperial County, Napa County, wherever they come down to fight the fire, they would not be familiar with it. The biggest concern is it's a plug valve that operates these valves. So it's not like a regular hand wheel on a fire hydrant where you turn and turn and turn and turn and turn and turn. This goes from full on, a quarter turn, from full off, a quarter turn to full on. So you're going from nothing to everything that fast. It puts the trucks at risk, puts the firefighters at risk. So what I was gonna move forward with, and just to update the board here, Supervisor Horn's office is on board. They've already committed the funds. As we would spend between $10,000 and $15,000. They would match that money, we'd provide the labor. And basically what we'll do is we'll take out what's there, unbolt it, bolt the pressure regulating valve at the bottom, then bolt a regular fire hydrant on top of that. So if anybody comes in, what they see is a regular fire hydrant. If you've been up and down Twin Oaks Valley Road past the university, you'll notice those fire hydrants look a little strange. Well, that's what San Marcos has adopted as a standard. Because again, they're not worried about their local guys, they're worried about people coming out of the county, coming in here and getting hurt. So that's just an update. I've also mentioned to them, and they are amenable to the fact that we don't maintain fire hydrants, even though we have agreements with everybody else. So the county fire marshal said that he would be willing to support that agreement, that they would take over maintenance of them after that, so we don't have that issue anymore. So again, just report if the board has any concerns or comments, but that's kind of the plan I was going to move forward with.
Did you come up with an install timeline?
We're waiting to see how long it takes to get delivery. What we're hoping is the real high pressure has a funny flange number of bolts that you use. So what we have to make sure of is we can get the valves with that same pressure rating. What we'll do then, once we get all the parts, we'll just put the 5 fire hydrants together in the yard, go out, cut the old one off, bolt the new one on, and we're good to go. No digging, nothing required.
Oh.
Yeah, it should be pretty simple. But what I was gonna do is let Supervisor Horn's office know, once I've updated you guys in case there were any concerns. And then they're gonna go ahead and move forward, commit the money, and then hopefully this thing will go to bed.
Questions? No? Mr. Snell?
Not to open up a can of worms, but is this the only fire hydrant that's like that?
There's 5 of them in that area.
There's 5 of them in that area that are
Mhm.
under that kind of pressure?
Yep.
And we're only retrofitting 1?
No, we're doing all 5.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
And-
no,
okay.
we're doing all 5.
So that 15, 30, about 30 grand for all 5 of them?
Yep.
Oh, that's-
Yeah, because we're going with the low pressure, we could have gone with the high pressure fire hydrant. Initially, they were thinking that's okay, but then they realized, well, hold on, we're right back in the exact same situation. We've got 330 pounds pressure. So we can go with a normal fire hydrant, which is cheaper. It's running around, I think Ken and I figured maybe 6,000 max, 5,000 max per to do it. And the labor's gonna be minimal, because all we have to do is cut the old one off and bolt the new one on.
Nice.
And these are the only ones that we have left in that area that are that type.
My understanding is that San Marcos Fire had 12 or 18 of these, and over the years, they've replaced them
That's correct.
over some time, so
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's basically mimicking what San Marcos is doing.
Mr. Mander?
I hope that we put this in the splash, that we're going above and beyond our requirement for the safety of the community.
That's what I made very clear to Supervisor Horn's office as well. We don't want something going out saying there was a problem.
Right.
Because it's not a problem,
No.
it works, it's just unique because of the situation.
Right.
I spoke to Valley Center, Fallbrook, Rainbow, Otay, they've all got fire hydrants, same thing, 300-400 pounds. It's not unique to a hilly area.
Yeah, wherever you have mountainous or hilly terrain.
You're gonna have this kind of circumstance happen.
This is similar to what Director Hernandez asked, but this started with the individual whose home was burnt down. So our doing this doesn't put us in,
No
or
liability.
any of us in a position
No.
where they can, I
No.
don't think it would. And I'm very glad we're doing it. I think it's wonderful. that
It's a good it's a good win
proactive.
for everybody, and I did ask Supervisor Horns, and I'll work with Lisa to send them a overall why we're doing it. I spoke to his press, Anita Lightfoot last night. And that's what I stressed to her, because she didn't want to talk to the reporter until she spoke to me, and that's what I stressed to her, is that nothing was wrong. Nothing was broken, everything worked. We're doing this as the fire department, Supervisor Horn, and Vallecitos board, working together to take care of a problem. And it's really not even a problem, it's more of a risk to the firefighters. That's the way we're approaching the whole thing. So that's all I have.
No other questions? Thank you for the report. District Legal Counsel.
Well, I hope you get this all done by October, Dennis, because the Santa Anas will no doubt come
That's
this
what they
year.
asked, if we'd be done by
So-
September. I said, we'll try.
Well, the area's pretty well burnt anyhow.
I have
How much
nothing,
to burn
Mr.
left?
Chairman. I have nothing to report.
I have a question for you. Lake San Marcos, can you kind of keep us apprised? I assume things happen out there
Yeah.
monthly, quarterly?
Mm-hmm.
And that would be part of your report, I think, to
Okay,
tell us.
be happy to do it.
Or if you're not doing it anymore, we're not paying you, if Dennis would do it, somebody
Yeah.
give a report on what's
Be
going on,
happy to do
moving
it.
forward.
Yeah.
Sure.
What, if anything, we can ever do to help
Okay.
politically.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, for bringing that up. I was gonna bring something up similar.
San Diego County Water Authority. Director
I
Evans.
see you all received your invitation for the open house in July for the San Vicente Dam raise, which should be pretty exciting. I will be going. Hope some of you will join me.
At your request, I'll certainly join you.
Oh, my request.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's a pretty cool dam, and one of the things we talked about at the meeting, which was in the, I know you received a printout of what happened, was they talked about, we won't see that there, but they need to do the core testing of the dam, and they raised it 117 feet, but to test it, they have to drill these cores 140 feet deep into the dam that are 6 inches in diameter. And there's like over 24 of them. I might have the number wrong. I thought it was 16, but it said, no, it was more than that. I think it was over 24 of these. And to do that, we're spending $1 million, almost $2 million, because they have to bring in the platform with helicopters. Process of drilling is more expensive when it's all done. They take cores and they do a very rudimentary test them under pressure to see if it's curing properly. But so much more to building a dam than one would think. But we're quite excited, and like they say, we have some wonderful new storage. If we get some rain to fill the dam, then we'll be doing really good. And then I'm referring to filling the dam as for water. I don't know if they received this. I had gotten a letter from Padre Dam, and it's about their advanced water purification program. And I thought it would be interesting if everyone had that, so just like to request that maybe we could get a copy of that. You know what I'm
Give Diane,
talking
we'll pass it
about?
on. Yeah.
But it's a really beautiful, simple two-page thing on purification systems, what they're hoping to do there. And they want to, of course, they have an aquifer in the Santee area to use it with, but it's a really interesting approach to trying to bring in our diversity and our lack of depending on the north in any way, shape, or form. And otherwise, I think the other most thing would be definitely, approve the budget, and you've seen that. It's a 2.9 increase on untreated, is it, Dennis, and 2.6?
2.9 and 2.6.
And 2.6. However, ours is that for ours. I know each district's slightly different.
Yes.
That is where ours fell.
Right, because of the allocation of the fixed cost between, they quote those as, they say all in, meaning it's the whole rate and it's kind of averaged out. So it's
Well, they're
different for
always
each
warning, every district might be slightly different,
Yes.
so I just wanted to check. And then we were doing the mid-budget review, and we had been talking about, we have our reserve minimum and maximum, and we mentioned that the Water Authority has more of a set level. But in the discussion, it came out that they actually are shooting for a middle range between what they call a minimum and a maximum. So it's not exactly a target, and they were comparing that to Metro, which does have a target, which is always the maximum. That's their target, and then they want to go over it. So it was interesting, but I thought I'd bring that up since we talked about it. And that's it. Thank you.
I have two questions. One question, you said 2.6, 2.9 treated, untreated. What time period is that for? When does that rate go into effect?
it goes effective 2015, right? On,
January 1, 2015.
Yeah, January 2015.
January 1 to December 31st.
Yes, that's their, except for the, there's one rate component, the ready to serve, that's actually on a fiscal year basis. All the other rate components are on a calendar year.
Okay, that's not helping me.
Sorry.
So what you're saying is in June, they can raise the rates again?
Just the ready to serve component, and that's really a met rate pass-through. Small
It's
portion.
because we're a multiplicity of agencies and everybody, some do fiscal and some do calendar. That's as best as we can
Yeah,
get.
it's part of the whole rate increase, Director Martin, but part of it kicks in right off the bat, part of it kicks in later.
Okay. And on coring, our resident engineer's not here, but our resident engineer is here. On coring, when you go in and after you build this dam, you go in and you core, doesn't that over time weaken the dam?
No.
You're putting holes in it, not all the way through, but you're putting holes in it.
Well, actually, you do go all the way through.
Well, that's not very good.
Yeah, it's, if you look at the magnitude of this, it's almost 1,800 feet, I think, is the total that they end up removing out of the dam. So it's almost a quarter mile that they drill through. They go in three directions. One is straight down, and they go all the way through all the layers into the bedrock. Another is they're going at an angle all the way through, and they drill through the new dam, and they drill into the old dam. And then the third one goes straight, and it does the same thing. And they're testing three different things, yeah. One is compression. So if you always see concrete, and you'll see a number like C2500 or something like that. The 2500 is a compression strength that is supposed to break at that many PSI. So that's what they'll do, is crush it to make sure it's cured properly. The other thing they do, because this is a roller compacted concrete, they lay it out in 18-inch layers and they compact it. As they're going through, what they'll do is they'll find the cold joint, or the joint between the two pores. And instead of crushing that piece, they actually put it into a machine and they pull it apart. That's to make sure that there's a good bond between layers, so that water can't go between the layers. So that's the two they do there. And then the third one they're testing is they're going to go through the new dam into the old dam. And what they're trying to show is that the old dam bonded to the new one. Last thing you'd want would be two big, massive things moving independent of each other. And so they do a test pull on that as well to make sure that they've gone through and done it. And they want the concrete out here to be as hard as the concrete on the old dam, so they wouldn't break at a different time. When they're done, they pump the whole thing full of grout again, so that any void is then completely taken care of.
My understanding when I did the Hoover Dam tour was that the concrete is still curing.
Yep.
So if that's the case, then how do you get the old dam curing rate to be the same as the new dam curing rate? When the old dam has been there, Seven Cities been there X amount of years, and this is new, they're both continuously curing.
Yeah, the old dam has probably pretty much reached the bulk of its cure. When they say it keeps curing, it just continues to get a little bit harder, but we're talking minuscule amounts. But they knew how strong that concrete was because they cored it beforehand, and then they designed the concrete for the new dam to match the strength of the old dam.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, but they are right, it does continue to harden over its lifetime.
Thank you. Any other questions of San Diego County Water Authority? Seeing none, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Moving right along to Encino Wastewater Authority Capital Improvement Committee.
Our next meeting is on the 16th of July.
Policy and Finance Committee from El Presidente.
Our next meeting is July 8th.
Next week.
But we had a board meeting, June 25th. And on the 25th, we talked to adopt a mitigated negative declaration for the, I always have a hard time saying that, pyrolysis? Pyrolysis demonstration project, which is a type of device they're putting in the plant to experiment for a year, I believe. And that will refine and perfect the fertilizer pellet that they have. Superheating it and supposedly making it more productive. So that was the one, and then the other one was, same thing we did here at the board, was North San Diego County Regional Recycle Water Project, which was just petitioning the Encino Wastewater to pass on letters to all the politicos about that. So that was it.
Great, thank you. Director's reports on travel, conference, or seminars. This is Dave, everyone from writing letters. Director Evans?
Actually, I'd like to make one comment also from the San Diego Water Authority that I thought of.
Right ahead.
And it was on there was quite a discussion on the water supply conditions and where we're going with the drought. And I thought the interesting thing was that they had shown that San Diego City is wanting to push the voluntary level a little harder. And a couple of the other agencies are wanting to make it a little more aggressive with their people. But we run into this dilemma where San Diego Water Authority doesn't want to push more than Metropolitan is pushing. Because Metropolitan sort of dictates what we're going to get. And it was interesting that this year is the first time Metropolitan has ever withdrawn. It's almost 50% of its reserve will be taken out by the end of this year. And if the drought continues next year, they will be in their droughts. They need to get an allocation. I might get this wrong, Dennis, you can help me. But they need an allocation of 55% from the State Water Project in order to feel like they'll be okay next year. But Metropolitan is still thinking about it and not real sure what they want to push and how. So it's very interesting to see the politics in a local level where some of these people are saying, we really want to go out and say you really need to do it more. And then you run into this, you're saying you need it, and people are going, why? Because Metropolitan is worse than you are, and they're not doing anything. So we have the water supply conditions coming, but I thought that was very interesting how much of their reserve they're willing to give up to avoid stating it's dead serious.
My question to you is, my understanding is right now, we get no water from the state water, we get it all from the river.
We're getting, 5% is going to be coming available supposedly on, I believe it's
Yeah.
September 1st.
To answer your question there, this year, they're predicting 1.9 million is what they're gonna use, 1.9 million acre feet next year. From the Colorado River, we're gonna get about 870-ish thousand acre feet coming across. So that supply is good, that's consistent.
Right.
But they're gonna pull about 1 million acre feet out of storage. I think they're at 2.1 million total
They
right
have
now.
saved, I was just gonna say, a little over 2.3.
So they're gonna pull 50% out, but of that 50% that's left, you gotta remember there's an emergency and there's dead pool. They can't get it out of the reservoirs.
And their storage is basically Skinner, is it not?
Skinner, they've got them all over the state, or not all over the state, but Northern California, but what Director Evans is talking about is they still need an allocation of the state water project
Right.
to get back and recover some of that storage. Otherwise, if we go into next year, and again, they're only getting 800,000, but we have a 1.7 or 1.9 million demand, they're gonna burn up another million out of storage. And that's what they have left. So next year, it's gonna get interesting.
And I
But
wonder,
what makes Met think they're gonna get the allocation? Because they need it? Well, they're not getting it now.
Better crystal ball than us.
Wow.
they're just very slow to respond, and they seem to think it's going to be okay. But what has brought it about for San Diego, the Water Authority, is that the San Diego City in particular is wanting to seek a higher level of conservation. And the reason they want to do that is that they feel that the focus right now is we need to save our water in reserve for next year if it remains dry. Because any further conservation we do is gonna be for us. It's not gonna help anybody else up there since there's not gonna be any water to come down. So they wanna be proactive and say, let's don't rely on Metropolitan even getting any more. Let's say they're going to have half of their reserves available. So we want to be sure we're saving what we know we've got. And that's the conflict, is how do you tell us to go into a real serious conservative mode when Metropolitan, which is where we're getting so much of our water, is saying, oh, no, it doesn't matter. So it's just interesting dynamics going on. I think it's going to be serious, and they do say that even with El Nino, they don't know for sure that it's gonna fall, even if the rain comes, we'll be able to capture it.
You've all seen the predictions at CAWA, they give it a 50-50 shot either way.
Yeah.
And even though Metropolitan,
What do our representatives on San Diego County Water Authority that go to Met, what are they saying? Are they just red-faced, embarrassed, or are they doing nothing?
what are the
What are
delegates
they
doing?
Yeah. We have people that sit on the Metropolitan.
Well, our metropolitan people are actually very proactive about trying to get Met to come step forward on a lot of things, but Metropolitan as a board basically ignores the delegates because we're in a lawsuit. They are agreeing at this point that they will look a little more closely at it, but most of the time, our delegates don't have anyone to support them in their request. So they've said no to an awful lot of things that they feel is detrimental, and they've pursued things, but they don't have that support. I think the delegates are doing a good job.
And don't I remember, Dennis, that it's, 26 groups and
We're 80% of the demand, but we have 4 votes out of the
4 votes.
We
26.
have 4 votes.
Out of the,
we can
30-something, however many there
do
are.
what we want, Al, and-
They're a voice in the back just
Yep.
chirping away.
We've gotten, I think it's Long Beach and East or West, one of them has actually timidly stepped out in support of some of the questions and concerns of
Yeah.
San Diego, but most of them just rely on the board, and it's kind of run very tight.
Yeah, the concern is if they
I'm
don't
gonna
start
be going
talking
up in
about it
October.
until the winter, because remember the water season's September through March. So if they don't start talking about it until October, November, December, and let's pray for a March miracle, we could be going from not bad to what we did in 91, when we went 10, 20, 40, 50 over a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
That's the fear.
I have nothing to do with Santa County Water Authority, but it's not the 4 votes that we have, it's how many votes can they garner. That's their job, otherwise they shouldn't be there. They need to garner enough votes if there's a real problem to bring it up to the board.
They're working on it. It's hard to garner when everybody's happy with the way it is.
You do the same day every other day, come on,
Oh,
with
okay.
18 people.
Not when there's a $2 billion
I'll relay
lawsuit
that
on
to
the
them,
table.
Hal.
Yeah.
No, I think they're hopeless.
Great. Thank you. Moving along. Thank you very much. Any other reports, travel, conferences, seminars? None? Okay, awesome. Other business, CSDA Annual Conference, September 29th, October 2nd, Palm Springs. Please let Diane know. Director's comments, future agenda items. Future agenda items Jim brought up. So far, if anybody has anything else, I don't know, but that Jim brought up was the, looking at.
Policy
contracts.
relative to.
Yeah, I've got that.
Okay. Mr. Sinella?
Yeah, it's my understanding that in years past, we've occasionally hosted like the Chamber of Commerce like evening mixer. Is that something that if the board is agreeable, is that something maybe we can look into doing again here?
We hosted it 2 years in a row when the current seated board came on 2 years ago. To answer some history for you. One of the first presentations we had Lisa provide to the board was all of the outreach that we do. It included all these other things. At that point, the board had chosen not to pursue doing the mixer any longer. If the board changes their mind and says do the mixer, be happy to.
And the reason why I bring it up is I had, just like all of you, I had my meeting with Patricia, I believe it is,
Mhm.
the consultant that we're using for our awareness campaign initiative. And as I was talking with her, what the overall theme that came up, and I know we're going to talk about this in detail during the workshop, was being more proactive about getting our message out that we want to get out to the community. And I think the Chamber of Commerce is definitely a critical piece of the business community, if you will, in San Marcos. So if we can support them and host something like that
I'll bring-
again, if again, I'm one of 5, but if you guys are agreeable.
Well, I can bring it back as a discussion item.
Okay.
So that's another agenda item that we can bring forward pretty easily. Anything else, other agenda items people would like to see come up?
I would like to confirm a date. Is there still an employee luncheon on the 31st of July?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, and you guys have to cook, just remember
Oh,
that.
good, they'll know when I'll come.
Cheeseburgers.
Nothing?
Cheeseburger.
I have one thing, again, it was spent an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe with Patricia, our consultant, and she was a wealth of information. Thank you very much, you picked a great lady with
Yeah,
a
they got a lot of experience.
lot of sense. she brought up and she asked me if I had seen the San Diego demonstration project, and I said, no, we've talked about it a few times, but I'd like to set a firm date that we as a board go down and look at it. I know 4 of us haven't, maybe Jim, you've seen it, I don't know.
We can do
I
it
know
as a
4 of
whole,
us.
we can do it individually, we can poll you guys to see.
It's the water reclaim.
Yeah, it's a demonstration project for the IPR. Yeah, we'll poll you if we can get a date that we can take it down.
Yeah, that'd be great to go down there and just see it. I mean, we're looking at all the, we're going to these conferences and we're trying to be cutting edge and be on top of it, but yet we don't even know what's happening in our backyard.
Sure.
I haven't seen that, so that would, I think, help us out.
Okay.
Might help us out with some groundwater research too.
It's okay. You're gonna be eating your words when I splash that water on it.
Thank you.
Might not taste good, but it'll be splashy.
That was Jim's comments. No other future agenda items?
Okay.
Okay, then we're gonna move into closed session.